Welcome to another episode of The Greatest Pod, where we discuss and debate what makes something great. I'm Ed Greer.
And I'm Ron Swallow. And today we are going to be talking about the greatest misunderstood characters.
Well, there's a lot of people that we can get into, so let's just jump right into it. Off the top of the dome, obviously, there's many characters like the Joker and Tony Montana that people talk about as misunderstood. So let's kind of get into some of those because they're just the lowest hanging fruit. So let's pick it quickly.
Yeah. When people try to make you sympathize with a murdering psychopath, it's bad.
But come on, Billy the Kid. People like that through history, just straight up murderers. Some of those guys are pretty cool because they murder cool. They murder cool.
Yeah, they were rebels. That's like the big thing that they love to say, that they're rebels against society's norms. Yeah, but the thing that they're rebellious against is letting people live. And I don't know about you, not a huge fan of when people don't let me live. I like living. I like it. I like drinking delicious cherry Coke. I like eating ice cream and having steak. And you know what I can't do when I'm dead? Those things.
Well, if you are a lady trying to help the Joker in a psychiatric ward, well, you just kind of deserve to get killed, right? So it's like that doesn't really count. And then all the people who are mean to him, they don't count as people. So we just kind of murder those people. And then, all the people that don't support his delusions and stuff or don't support his worldview, they deserve to get shot in the head. So like really, Joker really isn't a bad guy at all.
No, no,
You know
no.
what I mean?
I mean, look, Ed, think about all the people who haven't laughed at our jokes. We clearly should have murdered them.
Murder them. They don't get it. They don't get that. They don't get how hilarious. Now, but realistically, dude, I think the discourse over the Joker starts with so many people wanting to identify with a perennial loser that they'll take just fucking the system up temporarily. I think that's kind of, I don't want to say dangerous because I kind of hate, I am a liberal, but I hate the liberal mind of like, this idea is dangerous. I hate that, dude. Because that's kind of what the other side's thing that they like to do. Is like, this don't no ideas. Stop these ideas. You know what I mean?
No new things. We don't like new. Yeah. No, we're not saying that. We're not saying that.
But so I don't want to say the idea of Joker, somebody shaking up the system, somebody rebelling against stuff, somebody coming to terms with the fact that they're a loser and just blowing up over it. None of these things are all the way evil because they're things that people need to explore in fiction so they don't do them in real life. However, a bunch of people really identifying so much with somebody whose role is to lose and whose role is to show that chaos always gets beat by order. Like chaos over time wins, entropy over time wins. Every single building that you've ever seen is going to be dust in the wind before it's all over, or burnt up in a solar occurrence a billion years from now, or whatever. The bottom line is nothing lasts forever. Things tend to fall apart. Entropy does win on a long scale, but across the time of somebody's human life, order wins. And Batman representing, for better or worse, a certain sort of order, and Joker representing chaos. It just bothers me a tiny bit that certain people are just like, I'd rather live my short ass life in utter fucking chaos, baby, because the system sucks. I understand certain things need to be changed about stuff, but change is incremental. Change takes place over lifetimes. My mom lived in segregation. Change takes place over your whole lifetime. So focusing more locally and changing stuff, not strapping bombs to yourself or doing weird, crazy bullshit, shooting talk show hosts in the head. That doesn't seem to be the way that you make incremental change that will benefit future generations. And again, people not giving a fuck about future generations, people worshiping chaos more than building and order. It's not cool. It's not sexy, and it's not smart. And it's been sold as all of those because people think nihilism is cool for a certain period of time. But like, Start getting up to mortgage age and come tell me about goddamn nihilism and entropy and shit.
Well, and the other thing is, I think a lot of people see the bucking against the system as like a Robin Hood type thing. Where with Robin Hood, it made sense. Like people were starving, and then they got killed by the king if they hunted a deer that happened to wander onto his land by a millimeter, and
Hmm.
that's different. That's We're not talking about characters like Robin Hood. We're talking about murder, crazy people, Billy the Kid, all these Montana selling drugs. Like they didn't even tell the story correctly, like in a way that makes sense, because it wasn't like he just showed up and started selling drugs. It wasn't like he tried to get a job and the job I couldn't find a job and he was desperate and starving. He was just like, let's sell these drugs and make this money. That's not good. Like, at least if he was desperate and was like, "Oh shit, I gotta sling drugs because my grandma needs insulin and I can't take care of her." You know what I mean? Like, if it's a story where it's like there's something that causes people to make a bad decision, and then they have a change that maybe makes them a little bit better, or I don't know. Once they sell the drugs, they become legit and buy some businesses and start employing people and help out their community and stop selling drugs. I don't know, something where it's not glamorizing being a psychopath who hurts people.
Mm.
I'm cool
Well,
with
I mean,
it.
well, see, and that, but part of me goes, I kind of, in that moment, I did start to see what um, people read way too much into the Joker. People read a lot of, and certain people, a certain demographic of people, identify with
Mhm.
his white face too much, and really kind of get into part of all those aspects that you can fill in on your own. They get into this kind of weird. I've been pushed into the category of a loser by these lesser people, and I'll rise in the end because chaos wins. And they kind of tied up a lot of fucked up ideas and all that kind of shit. To that end, another few communities tie in this weird love of Tony Montana because Tony Montana fights a system, which is like, if you just think about it, just simply, the only reason why selling drugs is actually fucking wrong is because it is illegal. Thusly, the people who are illegally selling stuff have to have these private, fucked up machine gun wars with each other to
Yeah.
secure the territory to sell this thing illegally. There's only certain spots that where it's safe and not under surveillance all the fucking time to sell and make this business. So these people have to fight each other over these sections of turf, or in the modern age over this customer base that could be on the internet, that could be all different types of ways. But the bottom line is they still have to fight the competition in their area, and it's with deadly means. And
Yeah.
also the culture of drugs, just to be frank, when you'll do anything to get drugs, there are people who will shoot your ass to get drugs. And
Yep.
sometimes they are in coke armies, or they're a lone crazy person trying to kill people for drugs. And that's the part where it gets a little morally nebulous and fucked
And
up.
look, would the movie be as good if it was like he showed up, realized that if he could just get drugs legalized, that everybody's lives would be a little bit better, and then he went to he showed like statistics in different countries where it is decriminalized, and then he worked hard and voted to become a
Dude,
senator, and then
Mr.
changed
Tony,
the
Tony
rules and
Montana goes to Washington.
like, sure, I guess that's not as good a movie, but at the same time, maybe it's a better movie.
Join Congress to try to tell me I'm a bad guy. It's like, all right, dude,
Say
stop it.
hello to my little friend, and it's just like a law that helps people
It's a
out.
bill.
Yeah. And he slams it down on the table.
In the story of Tony Montana, the thing that people glom onto about Tony Montana is the whole rebel against the system, fuck the law, yada yada yada. Do whatever you can to get money, especially when I think they in the beginning of the movie they try to give a little bit of this, like as soon as they get off the boat, they're just getting harassed and shit because everybody knows that Castro dumped his quote unquote worst, i.e., sanitarium people. Supposedly, mental illness was more stigmatized in those days. So if you decided to drop off a bunch of mentally ill people of any stripe and people with criminal records, and those are the people you decide to send directly to another country, it can be seen as sort of an act of, almost war. And so
Yeah.
when the people arrive and they get put into detention, right? in the detention culture, it's just like prison culture. People have to like, sometimes people were pre-revolutionary figures, you know what I mean? And they were
Yeah.
doing bad shit to try to stop the revolution and shit. So like they were getting stabbed up in there because they were in the general population with other people. So they used to be an aristocrat. Now they're in with regular people. They're getting stabbed up. That environment, I could see could turn, fuck somebody's brain up. And then you're
Yep.
a fucking felon and a non-citizen in a foreign country. What the fuck you gonna do? So I could see, and he did work a job at like a shitty place selling burgers and shit, and his
Yeah, that's
boss
true.
was shitty, and they did dramatize all that. So that's not where it is. To me, where it is Tony Montana had so many psychosexual problems,
Oh
and
yeah.
he also owed the wrong people. I think the message that people get out of Tony Montana is, hey man, stick to your guns, don't break your balls or your word, and sometimes you have to go out, but you'll go out blasting. And that's the dumbest shit I ever heard in my life. The problem was
Hmm.
he owed the wrong people. When he wouldn't blow up that family for those super coke lords who gave him his start. When he wouldn't do that, he violated a covenant. If you owe me, then you do what the fuck I say. If I ask you to blow up 15 children and piss on their graves, what would make you think that I would be so dishonorable to do that? And the dude's like, what the f do you mean? I like loaned you $1 million back in the days, $1 million, 1980s money when you were fucking
Yeah.
flipping burgers. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, once you get yourself in the world of favors that huge, to where somebody could ask you to, with a straight face, ask you to kill a president or a lawyer or whatever, something like that, that was going to work on making some laws that would fuck them up. But that guy, he couldn't live according to this other person's point of view. So once you owe people that much, that's where you're fucking up. And nobody gets that lesson from Scarface. Zero people.
Zero.
Because people don't get that part. People get all this other bullshit when really don't owe people that much. And it's hard to get your start in anything without owing somebody, but you can't owe people that fucking much to where it fucks up your soul.
Yeah. I think this also lends itself to the people who don't understand Fight Club
Mm,
uh, very well, and Tyler Durden in general. Loving the dude because he beats people up. That's not part. You're not getting. You're not getting it. And I think that's one of the big things in this is like sometimes people key in on the wrong shit. I think with Tyler Durden, they're not saying, "Hey, it's cool to be a crazy guy who has a split personality and wants to punch people in the face over and over again." Like, if you get that, if that's what you get from it, I don't think you paid attention.
it's almost like all of boxing culture is that, though. It's almost like that's the least reprehensible part of it, because it starts out with people punching instead of talking, and then it
That's
gets
true.
into a giant fucking terrorist movement that starts out terrorizing corporations, but quickly starts to get to the point where in order to terrorize corporations or terrorize the so-called establishment, you have to terrorize people. You know what I mean? They're not. It's not an abstract concept that you're terrorizing or hurting or trying to threaten to chop their balls off. It's real people.
Like, I don't know. Maybe don't blow up buildings. There could have been people in there.
Yeah, but no, all the janitors shoot everybody out magically, because that's another thing about all these rebel institutions. Uh, Especially ones like in Star Wars. It's like they were like, hey man, these dudes are fascists, so we can like blow them up and steal their information and do whatever. Now the Empire is doing that all the time.
Yeah.
So that's what justifies the rebels enacting that way. But like, I love the fact that we're getting so much minutia about the Star Wars world, how like at least some like they try to make it to where everybody's a clone trooper, but even then all the clone troopers have personalities too. So no
Yep.
matter what you think, everybody that got lasered up by Han Solo and all them, they were real people. They didn't necessarily go home to a family, but they went home to Rekka and the rest of the bid bitches or whatever the fuck, and they hung out and they did their shit, and they were people, and they were getting smoked by these terrorists led by Princess Leia and them, and fucking General Organa and them were like terrorists of their time because their government had gotten so fascistic that it needed rebels. So it's almost like people can think about it as like whoever the fuck I want to blow up and kill is a fascist. Black Lives Matter is a bunch of fascists. They're trying to police my language and tell me their lives matter more. I understand that's not the point, but in that person's head, that's what they're thinking. They're telling me other people's lives matter more, or equal. And some people are like, or equal to. That's
or equal.
equally offensive to me. I don't give a
Yeah.
fuck what you're talking about. So that's a terrorist organization. So therefore, if somebody hurts them or shoots people that are running around with them, or shoots some white folk that's running around with them, fuck them. They're fascists. So that's why people don't. That's why people don't like to throw around the word fascist, because nobody in the regular discourse that's using the word fascist even really can define it. You know what I mean? They tend to just put it on people that they don't like. That's how you get all these people talking about, if I have to wear my mask, it's like XYZ year in Germany. It's like, okay, hold on with
Take a
that
breath.
bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So all I'm saying is you assign fascistic tendencies to anything you want to destroy, which is why that's a slippery slope when you're thinking about who the fucking rebels actually are, and
Yeah.
how much we actually identify with rebels. And obviously rebels need to exist. I mean, our country wouldn't exist if there
Yeah.
weren't rich people who decided they didn't want to follow the rules somewhere. Rich people
Yeah.
who didn't want to follow the rules somewhere came over here. It wasn't a bunch of people suckling babies in the hold of ships. It was
Yeah.
like some pretty rich people traveling that fucked up way, because those were the times. I get why rebellion is always so sexy to people.
Yeah.
Because especially to the American mind, it's rebellion is extra sexy, and rebelling against anything can seem so fucking cool. But
So should we define like good rebellion?
I don't know, man. It's really like beauty. Rebellion is like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder.
Right?
Because like there are people who are like, I remember as a young man being sort of obsessed with the fact that there are people who could read something like American Psycho and see it as a rebellion against a lot of things, norms of sexual congress, norms as far as like who deserves to be murdered, norms as far as what is okay to fantasize about and write about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you really look at the whole book American Psycho and the subsequent movie, in the end, there's still this plausible deniability that he didn't do any of that shit. That all of that crazy shit he was thinking about was just in his head, and that and there's even like certain interpretations where it's almost like he's in an amalgamation of that lifestyle. He's less a character than an amalgamation of the people living that lifestyle, and that lifestyle of fuck you, pay me, greed is good, or whatever that was going on in the 80s at that time
Yeah.
was it had murderous consequences on like the market and people's lives. It had murderous consequences. So it's like the murder that Patrick Bateman was doing was a metaphor for the financial trading and the bullshit that he was contributing to a system that was fucking people and murdering people in that sphere. So you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like there's all these ways to like recontextualize all this fucking shit. You were talking about Rorschach earlier.
Yeah.
Rorschach is like, what if the detective dude had none of the resources and none of the glamour and was going up against a giant conspiracy and was technically correct, even though he had all these other flaws as a human being, even though he had these psychoses. In the end, this person who was crazy got to the root of the real thing that actually happened, though. The
Yeah.
crazy guy was right in that respect, but he wasn't right on almost any other aspect. But people kind of seize on the fact that it took a crazy person believing a crazy thing to be right. Because everybody else is like, there's no grand conspiracy to kill old super types. There's nobody trying to do anything to unite the world against aliens. That's crazy talk. And it turned out to
Yeah.
be absolutely true. So I think Alan Moore was playing with a little. I think that's why Alan Moore kind of regrets that he had that character, even though it makes ironic sense in a literary sense. It isn't. It kind of does throw another log on the fire of the crazies could actually be right.
Yeah. Like people love to read that and be like, see, the people who sound the craziest are actually the smartest. And it's like, no, everyone look, a blind mice is gonna find a piece of cheese every once in a while because it's got a nose. even though the nose is injured. I just made that up, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's
I think most people say a broken clock is right twice a day.
yeah, I wanted to make it way more complicated. But
Wait a minute. What happened to this mouse? Was he blinded by the guy who threw
he's
acid in
look,
Two Face's face?
yeah, he got
Because it
acid.
hit his
Also, it hit his little nose, and so it
yeah.
couldn't smell as well. But he smelled enough to every once in a while run into some motherfucking cheese, even though he doesn't know what's going on and can't smell anything. You get the point. Um, I guess what I don't like in these type of characters is this praising crazies or the wrong kind of rebels. And again, I know that's like you're saying from the eye of the beholder type of thing. Well, who's some other guys we were thinking about? Oh, from Punch Drunk Love.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, just in passing, I just really felt like that movie was one of those like there's I kind of don't like the genre of cinema where there's always somebody for you
oh
because I
yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah,
think that's true. And you know what? I'm a hella beneficiary of it actually. You know what I'm saying? Like it is one of these things where whatever the fuck is wrong with you, there might be somebody out there for you. But to rely on that to this ridiculous degree and to like almost nurture how fucked up and childlike that character was and how much pressure he put on that lady, you know, it was
yeah,
like weird. You know what I mean? It was like there's always going to be some lady out there to mother you when you decide that you know don't want to pick up after yourself, when you want to be crazy as fuck and run up a bunch of phone sex bills, when you want to do all this weird shit. There's always going to be this woman there to like look at all those quirks and think they're all cool and shit. And it's just I don't know. It's like it's bothersome to me on some level that there's so many people who kind of think like that. And I think that's me kind of probably projecting a little bit and identifying that like, man, my chick puts up with so much dumb garbage from me. And so much she does have to do so much of that bullshit. But at the same time, it also is me going like, but like at least I put some effort into being cool to trap her ass in this relationship. This motherfucker,
yeah.
you
He
know
just
what I'm
acted like
saying?
a pile of shit. He just acted
This,
like a piece of shit, and then gets to have a girlfriend.
yeah, and it's just like even if it's not like such a piece of shit, but just like such a just why would you want to be around that? You don't have to
Yeah,
be a piece of shit to be somebody who's like, I don't want to hang out with you though. Like that's
yeah,
you're
yeah,
just
yeah.
a benign
So
benign shittiness. He just had a
yeah,
benign patina of shittiness that he just
yeah,
didn't make any real effort to get off of him. And then of course, over the course of the movie, he makes some you can define an arc in anything, which is part of why I kind of think it's interesting how many characters on this list have a flat arc. You know what I mean?
yeah,
These people who are just like, I'm going to stick to my guns and I'm not actually going to do that arc thing to change. I'm going to do that arc thing to get more into my ideology. And by the end of it, the shit's going to blow up on me because I went super full bore into my ideology. I think it's interesting how many of these guys are on here because I kind of sometimes when you talk about arcs, Ron, I'm just like, that doesn't happen in real life. So it pushes me more to the nihilistic side of like, it's more realistic. You know what I'm
I don't
saying?
know.
When you see somebody
I think people change.
I not for the better. This concept that people just I understand for every fucking hey, I used to be a gangbanger and now I'm a senator, motherfucker. There's 50 million. I was a piece of shit at 13 smoking behind the school, and I'm a 45-year-old piece of shit smoking behind the fucking thing. And I didn't do anything. I just got older as that.
Sure.
So the moment and fucking inertia's moving a lot of motherfuckers around, dude. So I just think in movies it's like I also think it's like change is very incremental. I
Yeah.
understand in movies it's about like, hey, in 2 hours you got to have made some super life change in your life, but it's like that's not how anything happens. Like most people don't have a 24 to 48 hour period where they became a whole different person. I started painting this year and it didn't happen in 24 fucking hours. It happened over the course of a fucking global pandemic. It happened incrementally of me learning how to color in digital without any waste or spending too much money to like get all these colors and shit. And then it went to why aren't your colored drawings the same as painting? Because they don't have any dimension to them. You can't see the roundness of the form. They're not lit properly. You had to put a lot more work into your shit to make it be a round real form, but and so on and so forth. And I had to learn there's like 27 or 58 planes on the nose. Like on the average human nose, there's like that many different planes that you have to get down when you're trying to light a nose. All
I'm
this
gonna
kind
have
of
to disagree with that, Ed. You just put one line in a little circle. It's got to be a triangle thing. Also,
dude.
eyes are also a triangle. Look, it's very
Yeah,
simple, Ed. I
it's
don't
very
think.
simple. Dude, eyes are just round and noses are just
No,
a
no, no.
slit.
Calm down. Eyes are kind of round, but they're mostly a triangle.
But
And
so all I'm saying about with all that shit is it didn't happen in 24 hours. It didn't even happen over the
yeah,
course of like what's gonna come from my paintings is probably 10 years away, if I'm being super honest. So I'm just saying it's like that's not that's not how life works. So I hate when it's jammed up drama's ass, when it's just like somebody has to have this moment in the movie, or whether somebody has to change for the better over this adventure. I don't know, man. I think that's part of the success of shit like Jack Reacher and shit. It's just like, I'm a big ass dude. I come into town, motherfuckers try to fuck with me, and I beat their ass. That's it. You know
yep.
what I mean? I think because that's more. I mean,
And I
in real
solved whatever
life,
problem is happening to somebody, and that's it. And I do it with my fists. Yeah.
it's just. I mean, frankly, that's more realistic than somebody going. You know what? I'm gonna change my life for the love of Margaret. There are people who spend 20, 30 years in a row beating people's ass with no repercussions. They're called cops. Oh, but like,
Hey.
but you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I just think the part of me does get nihilistic when I start thinking about like when we're looking at arcs. Most people have a pretty fucking flat arc. They find out what they want to do at 18, 19 years old. They pursue it in a long row. Sometimes they murder somebody along the way. So the arc starts doing all this weird shit. They go to prison, start reading and shit. The arc goes this way. But in the end, I don't know how many people lead lives like that, honestly, of that sort of high adventure.
Well,
Like a lot of
and
people, you know,
isn't that why we tell stories? Is we're telling the unique stories. We're telling the story of the
that's
person
true.
who changes. I mean, you don't want to tell stories of the everyday man because frankly, they're boring and you don't remember them. Like I use this as an example all the time. Like when you're at a bar and if you've been to bars multiple times, you'll see dudes who say the shittiest things to women and are just pieces of shit. And then you'll see a couple of dudes stand up for the ladies, and you remember both of those guys. Do you remember that one dude who was having a beer with his buddy and didn't say much to anybody else but his buddy and then left and tipped the waitress and just didn't say anything about it and just went on his day? No, you don't remember that guy at all. That's the normal guy. That's what a
Yeah.
normal guy does. They just go in and they're nice. And when they see some shit go down, they kind of keep to themselves and then they fucking go home. And there's nothing wrong with that. And also, boring ass story.
Well, all I'm saying is even heroes. A lot of times, heroes have a flat ass arc. Yeah, I want to go serve my country. I'm gonna go shoot everybody that they tell me to shoot, and they shoot people they tell them to shoot, and they survive a couple of tours in XYZ place. They become a fucking officer. They get off the field. They get to be a colonel. And then they go retire and they eat some pie. And the whole time they were just like from 18 to 56. I like to shoot people for my country, and I believe that anybody my country aims me at is a true target, and I need to take them out for the good of all in this world. And they
Yeah.
live that from 18 to 60 fucking 5 years old. And there's no up and downs. There's no loop de loops. Maybe around 56, he goes, shit, man, that shit might have been fucked up. Oh well, it's paid for my entire life, and it's made me a patriarch with wonderful grandkids and shit who all want to be soldiers like me. So fuck it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like how many lives change like that. So, but that's neither here nor there in regards to the I'm just saying the flat arc of the characters that we're talking about intrigues me on some level because I think that's kind of what makes people love them so much. Is it's like if I have a change, it's from small time drug dealer to big time drug dealer. If I have a change, it's from guy who kills one homeless guy to guy who kills 15 hookers in one row and wraps them up in a bunch of bags and throws them down the thing and never gets caught. You know what I mean? Like they're these guys have a flat arc toward. I start a little fight club. I start a little fight club to master my manipulation of men and their insecurities, and I make it into a giant terrorist organization. You know what I mean? And the only
Yeah.
arc is one person discovering that they wanted to do that in one of their personalities and deciding, oh shit, that might be kind of bad. I might have to pull up before, and then their mission gets accomplished anyway. As
Yep.
soon as they discover that they shouldn't be wanting it, their mission gets accomplished anyway. So you know what I'm saying? That's like the ultimate and kind of a flat arc. So it's like it's just interesting to me that a lot of these characters on this list kind of have that. Joker went from I'm a nebbish to I'm actually dangerous, but the society of Gotham helped him to become more dangerous by mythologizing him. That's where he comes into Travis Bickleville, where Travis Bickle was just one guy shooting up one, den of iniquity,
Yeah.
and it got turned into hero kills pimps to save girl, and that makes it into this whole culture where people can applaud him, and he can actually get Sybil Shepherd in the end because she thinks his idiosyncrasies of being a nutto was actually just eccentricities that made him a hero, but that's not true. The media made it that way. He didn't make it that way. He didn't change. You understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
He's
He
still the
didn't change
same
at
dude.
all, but the world changed around him. I think that's an interesting ingredient in all of these movies with these so-called misunderstood characters. I mean, look at Thanos. We're going to talk about
Yep.
Thanos.
Oh yeah, Thanos is. It's so many people who loved the hashtag Thanos is right thing, and it's like, you think murdering trillions of people is right for other people to eat more? Like, especially when we're dealing with magic, and look, I'm not gonna. I'll repeat it, but it's already been said. How about you just snap and make more food? Like we've already said it. It's been pretty clear. And it's interesting that people do think that that guy is right. And you're right. He has no arc at all. He starts out thinking he's right and that he's the only one who's right. And he ends thinking he's the only one who's right. So maybe a lot of why people like these characters is because of their cult of personality, because they think they're so right. Like there's a security in people who have ultimate confidence and no need to
Mm,
change.
yeah, yeah, I think that's really true. I think that's why a lot of those '80s heroes were so big.
Yeah.
And because of course we had two. I mean, on our Stallone versus Schwarzenegger episode, you can check out us going all the way into this conversation. But at that time, there was like these two beefcakes who could just do no wrong, basically, in these movies, where they were always right. There, if somebody pushed them too far, they could unleash this unholy fury of physical power on these people who were being shitty, and they were just that simple. There wasn't
Yep.
Stallone never shot a kid and had to like eat, eat donuts with the rest of the guys at a desk job like Reginald VelJohnson. Die Hard comes out in like 87, 88, which is like late in the 80s, where we were almost tired of the big muscle guy who could defeat everybody. That's why, Bruce Willis barely beats that first guy. That was a
Yeah.
shot across the bow of like, hey man, this is a real guy in a real situation. His feet can get hurt, his shirt can get dirty. This shit is really serious business. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
but yeah, some of those 80s characters are just like, I'm right, and as long as I stay right and keep marching in a juggernaut fashion towards my goal, I'll achieve it. I'll get Jenny back. I'll give these people air. I'll fucking. Although Total Recall actually does have a real arc and a real interesting story by it. So I won't lump that in with stuff like Commando, where he's just sort of an automaton marching forward. But all of them were fun. But yeah, that simple guy. I remember Kurt Vimmer. Equilibrium isn't bad like that. It's pretty decent action stuff. But it is just Christian Bale as a bad motherfucker who fucks people up. and then he changes kind of his mentality, I guess, changes because he starts thinking that emotion might be kind of a good thing. But physically and action wise, he doesn't get a finger laid on him for the most part of the whole movie. He's just slicing fools and shooting fools with the greatest of ease. And Kurt Vimmer was like, "Yeah, dude, I just kind of like movies where where the good guy just sort of fuck people up. And all this like going through a bunch of pain and falling down the stairs and getting hurt and I don't really feel that. I just kind of like the hero to kick some ass." But back to Thanos, the whole thing about Thanos is you're right that he just stays the same, and I'm not about to defend him on any level. I'm thinking the people who think that he's right kind of are kind of those sticklers, people kind of sticklery. And I think when they think of Thanos, they think of, even with all the magic of the rings, the magic of the fucking stones, I don't think that they think that they could make infinite food. I think that they for some reason think that that's preposterous. But killing half of the population is something that can, on some level, actually be done. And I think that's where it starts getting weird. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like people have conducted genocides before.
Look, it's the
You know what
same
I mean?
people. Yeah, it's the same people who like look at the number of people who died during the pandemic and just be like, well, it's only like 1% of people who got it. And you're like, um, yeah, 1% of people is a lot of people. That's like
Yeah,
millions and millions of people, dude. Like that's a serious thing. And we would like it to be less people. And
yeah. There's
that
there's
to
some
me, that's
shut
the same
off.
type of people. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's the not give a fuck if you don't know them, they could die anyways. That's a lot. I think there's some kind of weird psychosis when a number is big, though. I think that's a big part of it too. When you start
Yeah,
saying a trillion, it comes to a point where you're like, I don't even know what that means. You kill a
yeah,
grandpa in front of them, they'll think it's horrifying. But if you told people that a million people died from, someone not being diligent, then that's too big a number for them to really comprehend. So I don't know. Maybe that's the like
mm,
the defending of Thanos thing, but it's so weird. I don't think I'll ever understand that type of attitude. Do I want to,
yeah.
Ed?
No, no. I think there's limits to empathy. I was also going to talk about. I think we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we didn't really go into it. But the Alec Baldwin character in Glengarry Glen Ross,
Oh
off air, we
yes.
had a conversation about it. But like, there's more in common with the Thanos is right type of person. As Brian Simpson, I think his one of his tweets is I can't stand a Thanos is right type of nigga, and it's just like it just really puts forth the idea that like yeah, that type of person is usually didactic in their thought process. They're usually very they wanna do all this devil's advocate. You know what I'm saying? These people just love to throw a devil's advocate on there. It's just like certain things certain times when you're doing devil's advocate, you're doing just that. That's exactly what you're doing. You're arguing the worst shit. So it's like anybody can do that. Anybody can pick the most reprehensible fucking thing and then argue the other side. That's some that gets you points in debate class. But
Yeah,
real life isn't that. Nobody needs to be like arguing the rights of pederasts. You know what I'm saying? Like literally nobody
exactly.
needs to be doing that. That's not something you need to spend your intellectual energy on. So it's like to and not to a way lesser degree, but kind of more harmful on the whole. We don't want to get into that conversation, but like people who worship capitalism.
Yeah,
Alec Baldwin's character in Glengarry Glen Ross, I used to sell on the phone as you did too, but I
yep,
also used to do collections. And I used to talk to people about real money shit. I used to talk to people about their mortgages and stuff. And I used to talk about land and mortgages and foreclosures and taking people's shit away if they fuck with me and different shit like that. I used to be in that business, which I think the karmic toll is fucking me in the A right now, dude. I was a real fucking not I wasn't an asshole. I was probably one of the most compassionate people that I knew in that business. But there
yeah,
was still some shit where it's like you're starting to think of people as numbers. You're starting to think of like how much can you collect from them by this time? How can you get them out of foreclosure to make your numbers better, not to make their life better? There's a lot of shortcuts you start taking to be in that world. So all I'm saying is when you look at somebody like the Alec Baldwin character in Glengarry Glen Ross, He's there as a narrative function to, and Glenn Ross is about people who sell like swampland, shitty land, to people who envision it as a place where they're going to build some dream home, where they're going to live in some fresh place there. They're going to make they're going to use their nest egg to buy some land and really own part of America and be part living the dream. But in reality, it's a swampland that's shitty and hard to develop, and it's being dumped off by these guys who are trying to make it sound like a scenic resort, but it's not. So they're selling shitty shit to stupid people. Bottom line, that's what their job is, and they have a
Yeah.
big contest. And if a couple of the characters don't do well in that contest, they're going to be SOL. And some of the other characters who don't even need to do good in that contest are going to kill it because they're great salespeople. So that's the setup for the story, and that isn't quite enough for you to get into it as a movie. So Alec Baldwin comes in, and in a beautifully written scene, that isn't in the play, by the way, and the play doesn't have this scene. The Pulitzer Prize winning play doesn't have that scene, but the
Yeah.
scene in the movie just puts a fine point on it. If you guys don't sell this shit, you are gonna get fucked because the top guy gets a Cadillac car, second guy set of steak knives, third prize is you're fired because we're cutting this fucking office off. And the dudes start arguing their positions like, well, I've been here for years and I had a hot streak and I'm just kind of cold right now. You can't talk to us this way, blah, blah. And he starts telling them shit like, he said, what's your name? The guy asked him, what's his name? My name is, and he starts telling him, my name is this watch. My name is, I drive a better car than you. My name is, he starts breaking down like my name, my identity
Yeah.
is that I'm better than you because I have more capitalistic success than you. And on a certain level, I buy that because I'm a fucking American.
Yeah.
But on a higher intellectual level, that's what makes people such villainous, I just followed orders, cogs in the capitalistic machine, is that people, once you start making some money, you could fucking absolve yourself of any number of crimes.
Well, and this is the great example too, because then they did Boiler Room, which is like a cheaper, weak ass version of Glenn Ross, and I think I mentioned this off air, but like I had my supervisor in my telemarketing job was like, "You got to watch this movie. They are going to teach you how to sell." It's like, oh no, that is not what this movie is doing. They're teaching you about the worst part of capitalism and the worst part of that attitude. They are not teaching you. That is not what that is about, and you do not understand that correctly, dude. And that's actually kind of why I ended up quitting that job. Like, eventually I was like, oh, I'm not helping anyone. I'm just taking advantage of people. And I don't mind selling stuff if I'm going to help a person. Like, I'm cool with that. Like, I like helping people. But like, and when I say I like helping people, I'm not trying to sell myself as some like change people's lives type of guy. I don't do much of that. But like, if I'm going to sell something, I want to make sure that I'm selling them a thing they actually need.
Right. Right. You want to
Yeah,
actually try to solve their problem and make money, which is what business is supposed to be about. And
exactly.
and it's honestly the only thing that you owe anybody as a person is like, okay, I sell you a painting that costs me $8 in materials, but I sell it to you for thousands of dollars because you're paying for how long it took me to learn how to paint that good. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody kind of understands that. And like a car, right? It takes them, let's say, $10,000 to build this car. They sell it to you for $30,000 because your fucking ass can't build a car.
Yeah.
So they can mark it up in a certain manner, and then they can mark it up above that so that the salespeople have some latitude to be able to make some money for themselves in that. And everybody's fine with all of that. But when it becomes like selling an old ass grandma some swampland that she thinks she's gonna build her matriarchal castle on, and the shit's in literally a sinkhole, and you took her whole nest egg by selling her a dream, and she's like a halfway dementia patient with nobody watching her.
Yeah.
That becomes like it becomes more than just, hey man, there's a second born
Just
every
doing
minute.
business, man. Just
Yeah,
doing
just doing
business.
business.
Yeah.
It becomes more than that. It becomes like putting people in medical debt. Like fucking, if you have the choice to pull the trigger or not pull the trigger on foreclosing on somebody's house when you know for a fact that their debt that they're in is medical debt, and you choose to do that because frankly, people with medical debt can't fight you, and you'll get more houses to sell more stuff. That's
Yeah.
just wrong. You know what I'm saying?
It's
And
the
it's just
only
it,
time I
yeah,
really wish there was hell.
you
It's
know.
the only time because I want that guy to be stabbed by the devil's dick over and over and over again.
You want them dragged to hell. Uh uh so yeah, so that's basically in the end, movies with these type of characters that have these flat arcs, they have these ideologies that they won't back off of, they have that are never actually challenged in these movies. There's almost something in there's something almost insidious to that shit. You know what I mean? There's almost like this, like, I stuck to my guns, like in a roundabout way. Tarzan's one of those characters, and I know
Oh, yeah.
people hate Tarzan because of the racial implications and the Tarzan in the book saying I'm the killer of apes and many black men. There's a lot of wild shit that's in the original books, but the one of the main things that's fucked up in there is that the apes just knew to take care of this baby. They just knew that they couldn't crack this thing open and eat it. And there, it's almost like they knew they were going to get in trouble. Like, hey man, we fuck up with this white baby, there's going to be all types of motherfuckers in this jungle fucking this up. We can't fuck this white baby up. So
Yeah.
we got to take care of this motherfucker until they come and get him. And then all of a sudden they get attached to the white baby, and then the white baby becomes a better ape than any other ape. And
Well,
the
yeah, I
white
mean,
baby is a better jungle fighter than any black person ever born near the jungle in ever history. It's just like this almost like the sheer whiteness of Tarzan saved him from being prey to the animals and having to submit to the physically stronger apes and stuff. It was always like his whiteness and his super intelligence over everybody who's ever been in Africa before. Like, this is the first time a white mind got trapped in Africa. You don't understand how to be a dope motherfucker in Africa, but when a white motherfucker get trapped in Africa and has to adapt from the beginning, all type of superhuman abilities are accessed. You know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah.
wow, dude.
Well, look at as a white human being, having grown up in New Mexico, let me tell you, my being white did bring out all kinds of great things. There are tons of skills, bow staff skills. Wait a minute, I got
Both
no.
sides.
No, it is ridiculous. A lot of that stuff is ridiculous, and these characters. I I I hope that people take a look at these characters and see them for what they are, and see the multitudes that exist within them, and the good parts and the bad parts, and recognize that sometimes we're not supposed to like a character that's a rebel. Sometimes we're supposed to look at that character and learn from them. And I hope more storytellers remember that as well, by the way, because sometimes they do a bad job doing that. So,
Yeah, but the last things last, I think that's the last place where we actually need to. I think we're marching very steadily towards a world where you can't explore on screen something that you would never fuck with in real life. Like, you can't write a character that's fucked up anymore because people will think that you're endorsing that, when in reality, like, if you look at most of these characters, they get super fucked in the end. They don't
yeah.
actually win or do anything. So it's like part of
Yeah,
it is
Tony
the night.
Montana dies.
Yeah. So part of the it's just funny to me how, like, even in the movies that are supposedly glorifying some of this behavior, the characters get fucked. Like,
Yeah.
even in Gary Gunn Ross, the best salesman gets fucked. The worst salesman, who's willing to do anything to get by, gets fucked. Everybody who did anything bad gets fucked.
Yep.
So it's like I think it takes a certain sort of nihilism. I know that's word to take a drink, but that word keeps coming up. It takes a certain sort of nihilism to go, well, fuck it. If I'm born to lose, I might as well be a bad, shitty person on the way to losing. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, it's almost, you know what I mean? And
Gonna lose. I might as well be as shitty as possible. Woo!
it
Yeah.
just that's what's wild to me about some of these people, because again, I think I'm writing something with a character with a flat arc. That's why I'm probably attacking arc so much. And I think it's because in this respect, I do want the world to come around, not to come around to this character's he has an arc in that he believes more in himself in the end, and he lets some baggage go by the end. So that's his arc. But as far as him being like, I'm hella shitty and I suddenly become good, eh, I don't really enjoy that because I don't see it really happening too much. And I think a lot of times when it does happen, it's for weird reasons. Like I was doing this project one time and we were interviewing like people who were like former white supremacists and shit like that. And it's like a lot of them were just being like, yeah, check me out. I'm better now. Buy my book about how I'm better now for $5.99. You know what I mean? It was a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
this marketing of how much better I am. I used to be a shitty stockbroker guy, but now I'm a good guy who helps good people. Buy my shit. If you don't buy it, you're a loser. You'll never win. It's like you're doing that same mentality you used to do, but now with this goofy slap chop spin on it. And it's not
Yeah.
you haven't changed. You've adapted your shittiness to the present political climate, if that makes any sense. You know what I
It
mean?
does.
And
It
that's
does.
part of why I reject arcs on some level and certain things. But in movies, again, that's the great thing about movies, like you said earlier, they are exemplary of the times that people can change. They are exemplary of the times when we can see some of these ideas play out. And I think it's good that we talked about some of these characters that people deify and people kind of don't look at close enough. But I don't think, in the end, my last statement is I don't think it's on art or on artists to always write decent, nice people, to always
Agreed.
write people that you agree with, to always have bad people be punished at the end of things.
Yeah.
I don't think that's their bag at all, because in real fucking life, bad people get away with shit every day. People
Yes,
need
they
to
do.
fucking know that. Even in movie land, they need to fucking know that. We need to have a few more Empire Strikes Backses of all genres, across all levels of movie, across all whatever. More like, wow, that those people almost won. Why didn't they win? Why is it a tragedy? It's a tragedy because they could have won. You know what I mean? There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that are going on with some of these less desirable ways to make films. So I don't want to shut that down all the way. But yeah, so people who decide to willfully ignore the times that characters get their comeuppance for stuff that they've done across the narrative. Like
Yeah.
Tyler Durden got himself killed by pushing it too far. He probably could have kept moving that guy's body around for another 50 years, but he pushed it too far and got himself shot in the head. You know what I mean? He
Yep.
pushed it too far. So there's a lot of times when people ignore the lesson. So you're right, dude. People need to look more about what actually what these characters represent. And sometimes when you have a flat ass arc and you refuse to change, you get fucked up. So maybe
Yep.
that's the best argument for arcs being a necessary evil in my mind in cinema, is that a lot of times when you don't change, when you fail to adapt, when you fail to bend like the bamboo tree, you snap and you break and you
Yep.
lose.
Yeah. Be like water, my friend.
Well, give them our Patreon and let's get on out of here, because we get even deeper than this on the Patreon. We get fucking nuts talking about this stuff, and we get and we also have some fun little funny games that we do on the on funny games. That's a fucking movie
Yeah.
where it's
Funny
like, hey,
games.
the good guys do not win in that movie.
No.
Spoiler alert. So
Yeah.
but yeah, we explore a lot of things. We have an excellent episode up on there right now where we talk about fixing villains, and we kind of go in, and we don't make them better people. We make them better at being villains. And
Yeah.
it's a really interesting thing that we did that I'm very proud of, and it's on the Patreon right now. So it's patreon.com/the greatest pod.
Yeah. You can even listen to us fix Stiltman. We totally did that. Absolutely did that. We totally
Yeah,
fixed
yeah,
Stiltman.
yeah. It's totally
$5 to hear
possible.
that podcast. $7 to get Ed to draw Stiltman and send it to you.
With $7, we send you great art,
Yeah.
not pictures of stilt man, but yes, we do we do try so hard on the Patreon to at least 4 more extra pods and 2 pieces of art mailed directly to your door every month. So for that small amount, you get to actually help us do the things that we do.
Yeah, and if you are, listening to this and you look at your bank account and there is like a zero and or a negative in it, we get it. We've been there. Just leave us a review. Review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pods. Say something nice. Leave a 5-star review, and that helps us move up in the charts and get more listeners. Because this is going well, and we want it to go even better. So thanks as always for listening to another episode of The Greatest Pod.